It was a cold, moonless night, the kind that carried an unsettling calm. The winds whispered as they rustled the dead leaves, and the street was eerily silent except for the house on Elm Street. It had stood there for years, abandoned, forgotten by the town, but never unnoticed by those who lived near it. Jenna had heard the stories. Had she ever? The warnings, the dare, the house that whispered secrets on the wind. But tonight, all those warnings felt distant. She had to see for herself. She had to know what lay beneath the old gate, under the decaying roof, and through the dusty windows. Her footsteps crunched softly against the dry earth as she approached the iron gate, so rusted and cracked. It seemed as if it might collapse at any second. The gate groaned as she pushed it open, and in that instant, a strange chill ran down her spine. "Are you sure you want to do this?" The thought crossed her mind, but Jenna dismissed it. No turning back now. The house stood before her, its once majestic structure now reduced to a mere shadow of what it once was. The peeling paint, the cracked wood, and the dust-covered windows made it seem almost alive, as if it had been waiting for her return. Who would dare live here? The question echoed in her head, but there was no time to dwell on it. Jenna's flashlight flickered as she turned it on and pointed it toward the house's gaping door, which was eerily ajar. For a moment, she considered leaving, but something kept pulling her inside, as if it was calling her. The wind howled again, louder this time. "Okay," Jenna muttered to herself. "I'm here. Let's get this over with." She stepped forward, her sneakers scraping against the gravel, and crossed the threshold. As she entered, the air grew thick with dust. The scent of mold and decay filled her nostrils. It was so much darker inside than she had imagined. Her flashlight's beam struggled against the oppressive shadows, barely enough to reveal the old furnishings. An overturned chair, a torn curtain flapping ever so slightly in the wind that leaked through cracked windows. And then, suddenly, a voicey whisper. "Get out." Her blood ran cold. Jenna frowned, blinking into the blackness. The voice had been close, so close, she could feel the cold breath against her skin. Had someone followed her in, or was this part of the legend, part of the house's twisted charm? "Who's there?" she called out, but her voice sounded weak in the oppressive silence that followed. The air seemed to become thicker, pressing against her chest as if the house itself was breathing, alive in ways no one could understand. She thought about leaving again, but something kept pulling her forward, an invisible thread, urging her deeper into the house. The whisper came again, louder this time. "Leave, or be one of us." Her feet shuffled forward against her better judgment, the floorboards creaking loudly under her weight. With each step, the house seemed to close in around her. Suddenly, her flashlight flickered and went out entirely. Jenna cursed under her breath and tried to turn it back on. Nothing, just complete, inky blackness. Click. It came from down the hallway, the click of a door opening, soft and subtle, but undeniable. Jenna's breath caught in her throat. Should she investigate? Should she run? But no, she couldn't back out now. She had to know what was inside this house. The curiosity burning in her veins was almost too much to ignore. She let the stillness guide her, her hands shaking as she moved into the hallway. The soft rustle of the wind outside could no longer drown out the whispers. They came from everywhere. "Come closer." She stopped short as her eyes slowly adjusted to the faint moonlight coming through a broken window. A faded portrait of an old family stared down at her, the eyes of the woman in the painting appearing to move, tracking her every move. Suddenly, a cold wind blew through, rustling the old newspaper on the floor near her feet. She bent down to pick it up, noticing the headline that read, "The Addams Family Last Known Location." The house on Elm Street 5 missing. Her heart raced. This was no ordinary house, no simple abandoned property. The people who once lived here, had they disappeared because of the house? And now, was it calling her to join them? A loud thud rang through the silence, almost shaking the floor. Jenna spun around, her pulse thundering in her ears. The door at the end of the hallway had slammed shut. Jenna bolted toward the door, hands outstretched, and tried to pry it open. The handle was freezing cold, as if the metal itself had been iced over. That's when she heard it, faint at first, then clearer. 6 others entered, none have returned. A voice, soft but unmistakable, coming from behind the door. Her skin crawled. The whispers weren't just a trick of the wind. Something had changed. Something had claimed her. With shaking hands, she finally forced the door open. But what lay beyond it sent a jolt of terror through her. The room was empty, save for one thing, an old rocking chair that moved slowly back and forth on its own, as if someone had been sitting in it just moments ago. Then, as Jenna approached, she noticed something that stopped her cold. A series of markings on the wall's strange symbols and dried, cracked blood. "Leave before it's too late," a voice whispered directly into her ear. She spun around, but no one was there. She turned to the window. The whines howled louder. The whispers grew closer, more urgent, and Jenna knew the house was coming for her. Would she be another lost soul like the others? Or would she survive long enough to escape its evil grasp? The house wouldn't let her go, not unless it was ready to feast. Jenna's time was running out.